Hey Denver listeners, come get festive with us at the German Christmas Market on December 18th. Link in the show notes. And for all the listeners, please share your favorite holiday Worldschooling memories or plans for the end of the year episode. Take 30 seconds to record with the link in the show notes. Okay, enjoy this week's episode. Hola, I'm Susie, and welcome to the Wander World School and Slow Family Travel podcast, where we discuss the stories, logistics, and finances of long-term traveling families and the multitude of ways to learn and educate along the way. Today, I'm joined by Lizz Quain. Liz is a solo mom of 16-year-old twin girls and a long-term slow traveler who began Worldschooling in 2016. She shares her journey into Worldschooling after pulling her twins out of traditional school after first grade, initially to travel for a year to Asia, which evolved into years of Worldschooling. Liz is now a World School coach and course creator, and she details the educational approaches they've tried, including online schools, local schools, nannies, tutors, hubs, and unschooling. Don't miss all her tips for Worldschooling and working on the road, as well as her monthly budgets for slow travel over the years. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Susie. My name, again, is Lizz Quain. We are from the Seattle area, and we're currently at our home base. I am a solo mom of now 16-year-old twin girls. They're fraternal twins. We started Worldschooling when they were 7.5, so August of 2016. I'm one of the oldies around. I have done lots of different digital nomad, online, and in-person jobs and businesses over the years, but I am now a World School coach and course creator. I have a course on how to travel extensively as a family, not just vacations, and how to educate, how to World School your kids. I also recently partnered with Kate McAllister of the Hive in the Dominican Republic, a World School hub, and Rachel Carlson, who runs the World School pop-up hubs. And we have a course for World School parents who want to launch their own World School community in a stellar way that's sustainable and works really well for all the families that participate, as well as the family hosting it. That is a key thing.
This is great. You bring a wealth of information on this topic, so I'm really excited to dive into your experiences, your hubs, your offerings. But I'd also like to hear a little bit more about where it all started.
I grew up in Seoul, Korea. My mom is Korean and my dad is American, and they both work for the U.S. government in Seoul. That's how they met. I wasn't a military brat because my dad wasn't in the military at the time, but I kind of lived in that lifestyle. And we did travel a bit in Korea, and we would go to Hawaii regularly because I had relatives there, and then to the mainland. And then once we moved to the States when I was 9 years old, we just did regular travels up and down the West Coast. We were in Seattle. I think maybe growing up in another culture and being multicultural, I was really interested in other cultures. Then when I was in college, I started traveling to Europe. I backpacked around the world in 1998, 98, 9. And so now I'm close to 50 countries. It's been a huge passion of mine and now a passion of my kids. So back in 2016, I was really burned out from running a really intensive children's business. It was an indoor children's play cafe that also had a preschool, and it also had 3 birthday party rooms. So for 6 years, I was really in that world. I just really burned out, and my kids were getting too old for my business. So I sold it, and during that time, learned about the whole concept of being a digital nomad and Worldschooling. Worldschooling actually came later. The first thing was following the digital nomad influencers and podcasters. And this is when I discovered Worldschooling, and Lainey Liberty had some content online. She and her son run the Project World School teen retreats now, and we've become friends. I eventually sold my business, pulled my twins out of school after first grade. One of them has ADHD, so school was not great for her. They just wanted her to sit still and not walk around the room and touching everything and stop being so curious. I figured out she had ADHD, and we started doing some counseling. I was kind of against medication at that point. So I said, let's just travel for a year. Let's go to Asia because I knew it well. And they were really into nature, and my mom was going to meet us in Korea, and we were going to go to Bali, and they really like swimming and with the turtles and all that stuff. We were in Southeast Asia most of the time, and Japan and Korea. And then it got too hot for us. And so we went to France for a bit, and then back to the States. And then we voted. I have my kids vote, like, do you want to do it again? We went to Colombia for 6 months, then Peru for 6 months. I hired nannies, and I also put my kids in local schools in Peru. So then I started teaching English online because we were traveling on the proceeds of my business sale, and my bank account was going down, down, down. So I started supplementing that by teaching English online. And then through some World School friends, I heard about this online school that was launching. I was on the launch team and was there for 3 years. It was really good for a few years. We grew to over 200 students around the world. It was very focused on skills of the future and self-directed learning. But the CEO kept making changes, and it was really difficult. Now it's just him and his son. So you may see me out there on the internet recommending Galileo, but I no longer recommend them. I co-hosted a Homeschool Global Summit. I learned a lot about homeschooling and unschooling and online schooling. And so I have interviewed a number of progressive online schools and a bunch of other guest experts about education and travel insurance, and even a couple accountants on how to save money traveling. And they were in my Facebook group. If you look for Worldschooling Traveling Trailblazing Families, you'll find my Facebook group. Half of them are up on my YouTube channels. But because of all the stuff that I learned from working in alternative education and interviewing all these people and my own life and literally meeting hundreds of world schoolers in person since 2016, that made me decide to launch my own course and teach people how to world school and travel extensively as a family. So I went to some of the first in-person World School summits and conferences, and then the World School Hub took off. And my kids and I started visiting some over the years, and we even hosted a teen World School Hub in Fethiye, Turkey for a month. And at the end of that, my kids and I decided we did not want to be a hub founder. We didn't want to run hubs because they're really complicated, but we wanted to be customers of them, and we wanted to shine the light on them. I partnered with Kate McAllister and Rachel Carlson on how to launch a stellar hub, a good sustainable hub that runs really well, because there's about 100 hubs out there, and a lot of them are pretty good, but there's so many things that people who are new to running a hub, they don't anticipate. And there's a lot of hiccups and there's a lot of stress for both the hub founder and the participants. So that's why we put together a course on how to do this.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And that's where the courses and the coaching can come into play to just help work through that. Like, I have an idea, but how do I put it into action? So you've been a participant for hubs, you've put them on. You've learned over the years ways to make it a positive, sustainable, enjoyable experience for not just the participants, but also the creator who's pouring often their heart and soul into this opportunity.
Totally.
And so it's a lot to consider. I'm curious, though, since you've shared a little bit more about your traveling journey with your kids and your family, now that they're 16, what have their thoughts been over the years with world schooling?
They were 7.5 when we started, and they didn't choose to travel in world school because they were so young. At first, they thought we were on this really nice vacation. We were in Bali. That was first place. And initially, I had us staying at a really nice resort with a kids club and multiple pools and all sorts of beautiful rooms and activities and food and music and all that. And so a few days later, I moved us into a cheaper place. And then a few days later, I moved us into even a cheaper place. And that's when I started meeting with other World School families and started hanging out with them. So it was a little bit of a shock. And the first 3 weeks was great. But after a few weeks, they said, when are we going home? And they were starting to get homesick. So I had to kind of explain to them, like, we're going to be traveling for a year and we'll see how it goes. So they did great when they were really, really young. And I'm really good at finding other people and finding things to do and activities and immersing into the local culture. It was a really great experience. We would go home to visit my mom, who had really helped me raise my girls since birth. So she's a very active grandma and kind of a co-parent. So we would visit her once a year. And we were in over 20 countries that we lived in. And we tried to slow travel, but sometimes we fast travel a little. Or we visited. And when they turned, I think 13, this is when I was running the hub in Turkey. Aubrey, she really missed grandma, but she wanted to spend the summer with grandma. So we flew back to the States a month earlier than we planned. And Gabby wanted to continue. So Gabby and I went to Argentina while Aubrey was spending the summer with grandma. And then we FaceTimed each other. And this is when she said, I want to try school. And so I did research, and the school she would have gone to, the middle school, had a couple of kids bring guns to school. And that was one of the wonderful things about traveling the world is we didn't have to deal with guns so much. I did research and I found there was a Montessori middle school that I could put her in. She enrolled there, and Gabby and I, after 4 or 5 months, we came back from Argentina and we spent, a month or so in the States. And then we went to Turkey, Bulgaria, Italy, Germany, all the stuff that we were planning to do. So I was traveling with only one of my kids. It was really hard. Aubrey sometimes wanted to meet us, and she wanted to do both. And so after a while, I launched my course on how to world school, and it's not easy to run an online business and be actively world schooling at the same time. So we came back to the States, and I put Gabby into the Montessori middle school. I put her in the 8th grade. I didn't force her to do math for 6 years because we had tried homeschooling, then online schools. I had hired teachers and tutors and nannies. I had enrolled my kids in local schools in Peru and later in Mexico. We had gone to World School hubs, and then we also unschooled. So my kids had done it all. I didn't force Gabby to do math for 6 years. So she was initially getting a C, then a B, and now an A. And now she's a straight A student. Aubrey, even with her ADHD, she's getting a 3.8. So it shows that all the years my kids world school, it didn't ruin them academically. They're thriving. The teachers are always telling me how mature they are and independent and obviously worldly, but how they're good leaders and adaptable, and they know how to learn. So throughout our all experiences, they weren't in this school system for, in the 4 walls of following the curriculum that the school district forced on them. So my girls really know how to learn. Even though they're getting top grades, they're still self-directing their learning on the side. They still value all the years that we traveled and world schooled and all the friends that we made. So world schooling, part-time for them works. They're still friends with a lot of the kids that they met world schooling, and they still want to travel. And Gabby, she's really interested in marine biology. Even though she's really creative and artistic, she misses all the times that we were spending at the beaches and islands and all the science and nature, and she knows all about insects and animals. And Aubrey wants to go to Greece because she's really into Greek mythology. Before that, she was into Russian history, and they're still spending a lot of time learning and becoming experts, like deep diving into stuff that they love. All these years of world schooling, it helped them become who they are now. They're very open-minded to other cultures, which I think is sorely missing in our country. And, they have made friends all over the world of different backgrounds. Also, Gabby especially speaks a bit of Spanish, so she has some Spanish-speaking local friends. I remember saying for years, I want to raise my girls in a way where I can, at the age of 18 or 25, I can drop them in any major city in the world and they'll be fine. They'll be able to figure things out and get home or get to where they need to go. So I think they're pretty good at that.
Yeah, no, that's such an important skill. And you also touched on your approach to education while traveling. And I'm really curious because you have utilized lots of different options for the education piece. Do you feel like at certain ages and stages for your kids, there was a certain type of world schooling or education that worked best? Or is it really just so individual to the child themselves? I know that not every environment works well for every child, and I get the desire to pursue different things at different phases. Any thoughts in that regard?
We had tried all different ways, and in my course, I go really into depth on each of the 6 ways. One of my modules is I give an overview over the education system and why I think today in 2025, how it's really antiquated and not preparing our kids for the future. And I also talk about how to homeschool while world schooling. That's parent-led education. And with the homeschooling, I share a list of 700 online learning apps. And then the next way is online schools. And I share a list of 70 online schools. And then I have hiring nannies, tutors, or teachers, either at the destination or online or to travel with your family. And I share a list of 40 online tutoring companies. Then we have in-person local schools, classes, and camps at the destinations around the world. And I share a list of 100 World School-friendly local schools around the world. And then World School summits, hubs, and pop-ups. And I have a list of 100 World School hubs. And that's the list that is hardest to keep up to date because there's so many new ones popping up or going away. And some of them have some learning and others are just for social connections. The last one is unschooling, self-directed learning. child-led learning. And then I have a module on the future of world school kids, helping them get into university if they choose that route, or become an entrepreneur or get a job or whatever they want. So all of those different things we've tried. I've met hundreds of families, and I always ask them, like, how do you fund the travels? Right. And I have a list of income ideas. And then my second one is, how do you educate your kids? I've just heard from so many families, and it really depends on the kid. I do think that for younger kids, I would really focus on self-directed learning, child-led learning, and going to world school hubs, being around other kids, maybe enrolling them in local schools if you're at a country long enough to do that, because that especially for them to learn another language and really immerse in the local culture and meet local kids. And, nannies, tutors, that kind of stuff. I wouldn't focus on super academic stuff or online schools, I think, until the kids are at least 8. You could do some out-school classes. Initially, when I was world schooling, I met this American mom who lived most of the time in Morocco, and she was using the Charlotte Mason method on her kids. They sat down for a couple hours every day. And so at first, I was trying to get my kids to sit down with me and let's read Harry Potter and let's go on Khan Academy and do some math. And my kids were like, no, Mom. They were 7. They were like, there's a spider out there on that big tree we want to go check out. And there's also a pig next door. And there's monkeys. And they just wanted to go out there in nature and just explore. And I'm so glad that I didn't force them to sit down and do academic stuff at that age. And they got really into animals and biology and nature. So it depends on the kids. But for younger kids, I would really relax. It's not important to stay on grade level. Like I said, Gabby was behind in math. Now she's a 4-point student, getting an A in math. Kids will learn what they want to learn best. There's a thing called a learning pyramid, and forcing kids to learn via lecture and reading is one of the worst ways for kids to retain that information. The best way is if kids are going to have to teach others how to do the thing. And then obviously the step above that is immersive, like learning by doing. I think it also depends on the kids. Some kids do really well with teacher-led or parent-led learning. Other kids are really against that. There's a lot of kids, depending on their age, that start world schooling in middle and high school. They hate school. They're so burned out from all the years of being forced to learn boring stuff that they were not interested in. And so they need to de-school. So it really depends on the kids, where they are in their life, their age, what they're interested in. I'm really glad that we tried the different ways. My kids decided to go to this high school, small art school. It's a magnet school. It's a mix of academic classes. They're doing chemistry and world history this year, English and all that. And then a lot of creative classes like graphic design, illustration, theater, music. I mean, one of my girls is really into music, songwriting, becoming a record producer. I mean, not just playing music, but the business side of it. And then there's a lot of project-based learning. So I would recommend that if you go back in the school system, find something where the kids get a choice in what they're learning. There's so many different ways to learn, and it really depends on the kid, the age of the kid, the family's philosophy. And also, are you going to be world schooling for a gap year, or are you going to be world schooling for 10 years? Do your kids want to go to university? Do they want to go in the trades? Do they want to become a doctor or nurse? Do they want to start their own business? So there's so many paths out there for kids. And I really think that world schooling and just kind of going with the flow and slowing down and not stressing over the academics, I think that really helps. I've interviewed other parents whose kids were unschooled, and then between 16 and 18 or 19, both her sons did online school for a community college in the U.S. It was all online. This was during COVID, and they did great. And they're both going to really competitive universities in the Netherlands. So I would just tell parents not to worry. There's so many different ways to learn. And I think the most important thing is for kids to learn how to learn, because the future is really unknown. And, in 5-10 years, AI is going to take over a lot. And obviously try not to choose a job that AI is going to be taking over unless you're one step ahead of AI. But to learn how to learn 21st century skills, which are critical thinking. And we have a lack of critical thinking in our country, and that affects the way we live. Okay, so critical thinking, collaboration, you need to learn how to work as a team, thinking creatively, out of the box, and communication, knowing how to communicate with others. And that's one thing that I really see with world schoolers and homeschoolers and unschoolers. They know how to communicate with adults. One family, she had her kids in this online program, and then her boys were doing fine and they were kind of world schooling, unschooling, but her daughter was struggling because I think her daughter had some ADHD. So they did one-on-one tutoring with her with a company called Cicero Learning that I recommended. And it's expensive, but her daughter was rocking it. She got so into these classes that she was struggling with, and they weren't her favorite subjects, but she was doing really well with the one-on-one focused attention. And it really, you got to try different things and see what works for your kids. One thing that's really great about world schooling is you actually spend a bunch of time with your kids versus the regular lifestyle. You're going off to the office and then the kids are going off to school and you barely see each other.
Yeah, like the normal schedule, you don't necessarily see where they're at in their education journey, what they're liking, what they're not, how they're learning, and you can be more adaptive to their needs through world schooling.
Exactly. And, even though as a single mom, I was busy working online or whatever I was doing, I didn't have the time to homeschool my kids, but I was able to choose different ways for them to learn that I liked. And then as they got older, they would give me feedback about what they wanted to do, what they didn't want to do. Just listen to your kids, have family meetings, and see what works. I think the kids who know how to learn, they're going to be the ones who can jump in and adapt. A big complaint that employers have is that kids nowadays don't know how to learn, how to figure things out on their own. They're so used to being trained and taught by a teacher, and then they want to be taught by a supervisor. And some companies are great with that, but a lot of companies want you to figure things out on your own. AI is replacing a lot of entry-level jobs. There's more and more university graduates who are unemployed. There's also not a lot of education in school on how to start your own business. Even getting an MBA, that's to work for a corporation, to be a management consultant or work on Wall Street or whatever, not launch your own business. If kids learn how to launch their own project or nonprofit or business, they're going to be so much better off than just applying to thousands of jobs online.
Yeah, that's true. And I like to feature a 1-month spending snapshot. And I know you're at your home base currently, but for a family that's wanting to maybe start out on a long-term, slow traveling journey, what's like a budget range that you found worked for you and your family?
Sure. We started traveling in 2016. There's been a lot of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have spent anywhere from between $1,200 US a month to about $5,000 a month. So that's a big range. And it really depends on where we are. I think that $1,200 a month, that's when we were in Peru. I found this property where I rented a large room with 2 double beds for, I think, $250 a month. And it had a kitchen next door, and it was kind of a shared space. And it was a Peruvian man who was trying to turn it into a hotel. I posted on one of the World School groups, and I said, hey, who wants to come to Peru? And like 20 families passed through over the 4 or 5 months we were there. So
That's so cool.
Really cheap. And, we became friends, and we went to Machu Picchu with a group of people. It wasn't really a hub. I just invited people to come, and they paid the guy. And then my girls went to a local school there, and it was about $200 US per kid. We were, trying to cook from home and all that. So yeah, $1,200 per month was pretty good. And there were times when we were kind of fast traveling through Europe. And we spent the last summer 2024, 10 weeks pet sitting in the UK. And we hadn't pet sit in the earlier days because we would just go to lower cost of living countries where other world schoolers like to hang out. But we like to mix it up with more expensive countries now. And we try to pet sit when we do that. We actually went to San Francisco for spring break last year, and we pet sit for part of that 2 weeks that we were there. So it depends on how fast you travel or how slow you travel. Again, we used to do slower travel. We've been, in Medellin, Colombia for 6 months and Peru for 6 months. We were in Mexico for a long time because of COVID. We were in Playa del Carmen for 6 months and hanging out with all these other world schoolers. And Lainey Liberty had her Project World School Summit. And then we were heading to Guatemala to be in a Stone Soup pop-up, but that was March 15th when the world shut down.
Oh my goodness.
Border guards wouldn't let us through. So we went back to the Mexico side, and luckily they gave me another 6-month tourist stamp. So we went back to Mexico and went to Puebla for a while. I hired a nanny to live with us because I was working for the online school that was blowing up because of COVID. So I hired a nanny to cook 3 meals a day and clean up and speak Spanish to my girls since everything was shut down, everything was closed. Eventually, we went to the Republic of Georgia. We drove my car to Dallas, sold it. We went to the Republic of Georgia for 6 months. And so we like to stay places kind of long. I always try to get a deal on accommodations. I think nowadays it's 25. I think $2,000 a month for a family of 4 would be a struggle unless you're living really like a local in lower cost of living countries. It's harder nowadays depending on where you travel. I saw a Facebook post of someone, a family of 4, I think, who spent $300,000 in maybe a year and a quarter. I've interviewed people who went on African safaris and they're spending $50,000 for the month. So it really depends on where you go and how long you're staying there. This is, I guess, more from a Western Europe, American, Australian, Canadian point of view. It's hard to live in the States in a big metro area for $3,000 a month. So we save money when we go abroad. I have learned how to do mileage points. And again, the pet sitting, and you could do house swaps. There's so many different things. And I've interviewed a whole bunch of people who do all this in my YouTube channel. There's people who travel only during the summer and they're spending a lot of money because that's when everyone else wants to travel. Budgeting is interesting and there's ways to do it on a budget and others just splurge. And this is their 1-year gap year and they're never going to travel again as a family. So they go all out and they've been saving money for years and they have their beautiful house rented out and someone taking care of their dog. So they're able to do it just this 1 year. I'm a single mom of 2. We typically go on a budget. It's typically around $2,000 or $3,000 a month since 2016. Obviously now, like when we're in the UK, even with the pet sitting, and we pet sit for, I think about 50 nights. And I'm guessing that saved us around $5,000. I still spent $3,000, $4,000 a month over those 3 months.
And the UK is a great place. I watch Trusted House Sitters a lot. It is, I think, where the website started because there's so many there that I'm like, if someone wants to go to the UK, you should absolutely look into house sitting. There's so many places and you're maybe not going to get your downtown central London, of course, but you're going to find hidden gems. You're going to find houses that have enough space for you and your family. And you can still usually access public transit for many of them, or you rent a car and you can see the countryside. I've even told the Spanish families that we know in Sevilla, if you want a vacation to England, you should look at this website because you can get relatively affordable flights to England. And then now your accommodation is taken care of. And yes, there's the pet component to it, which my kids love. We love part-time. I don't need that full-time. Love it part-time. So yes, this is great. So before we wrap up and share resources, let's learn more about you in a lightning round. Top 3 places, cities, or countries.
3 is hard. I'll tell you places I've gone back to repeatedly. Thailand, I've been there multiple times. I've been to Spain multiple times, Italy multiple times, Ireland multiple times, and Japan multiple times. And Bali. See, I keep going.
Great places, great locations. Most unusual food that you remember trying along the way?
Aubrey's my foodie, and she and I love food. Gabby's a really picky eater. So Aubrey, she has tried all sorts of shellfish and escargot and even fish eyeballs in certain countries. And so she is more adventurous than I am.
One item that you cannot travel without?
My AeroPress. I'm a coffee snob. This is a hack for parents of younger kids. So instead of going out to find a cafe in the morning for your coffee fix, I bring my own. I used to own a cafe, so I really got into good coffee, good Seattle, Portland coffee. I even had a handheld grinder, and eventually I got like an electrical grinder. But I use the AeroPress, and when my kids are still in bed, asleep, I can make my coffee in the morning and not rush out to find my cafe. So my AeroPress has been amazing.
Makes sense. First thing you do when you arrive in a new country?
Get a SIM card.
Yes, gotta communicate.
I've tried to get those eSIMs, but I failed.
Phones are complicated. And favorite subject to World School?
History.
Well, and you're right. That's where traveling really shines, is seeing the history in action and the food. Sounds good. A piece of advice for families just starting out?
Take my course. I will teach you everything and that you never even knew that you wanted to know. And it'll make your trip so much less stressful. You'll be less overwhelmed. I have an A to Z step-by-step course, and you won't make so many newbie mistakes, some of which can be very costly.
And you've shared you have a quiz that's coming out. Can you tell me a little more about that quiz and how that can connect people to the right resource for them?
Yes. Right now, I have a lot of resources like the top 6 ways to world school and a list of 300 income ideas and a bunch of other stuff. I just post them here and there on Facebook. Friend me on Facebook if you haven't already. I have put together a quiz on is world schooling right for you? There's about 20 questions, and I'm manually going to be reading the answers and putting you within 3 categories. First category is yes, world schooling is right for you, and I will send you some videos on what your next steps are. Middle bucket is world schooling might be right for you, but you still have a bunch of ducks to get in a row. And I will share with you a bunch of stuff about world schooling and also send you in the right direction for people or companies to talk to get your ducks in a row. And then maybe you can get back to me in a year or whenever you figure that out. And then, of course, the last one is world schooling is not right for you. Some people join my Facebook group and they would like to do it, but in reality, it's just not something that makes sense for them over the next few years. So I still send a bunch of resources and the interviews just to inspire them.
Sounds good. You have other links that I will make sure to link in the show notes. That is the course information, the Facebook groups, the YouTube channel, Instagram, and the World School All-Stars. Is that the website that focuses more on the course creation?
Hub creation.
Hub creation. Yes, the hub creation. If someone is thinking about building a hub, wanting to do it in the right way, that would be a great resource for them to connect with you and Rachel and Kate.
We are almost finished creating the first part of the course, and we're going to have 5 modules, 2-hour videos each. We did a live with the 3 of us, and whoever could show up to the live meeting to ask the questions, and then we give homework. So we quiz them before we launch the course on what specific things they wanted us to focus on. So we have that almost done, and it will be available online in evergreen format. Then if there's demand, we will launch part 2, and that will be a more advanced course. And we will be interviewing more guest experts of people who run like nomadic hubs, or like Patty Rojas, she's one of the first hubs, like what inspired her, and just some of the other leaders in this space, because we all do things differently. And after each course, once you've finished the homework, you will get a badge that you can use on your marketing materials to show that you have been trained by the World School All-Stars, people who are highly experienced and know the ins and outs. Everyone can reach out to me at liz@trailblazingfamilies.com. That's LIZZ.
So many great resources for people to check out. Is there any final note that you'd like to end on?
Even though we are no longer world schooling full-time, and I will get back to traveling once my kids fly the coop and go off to university. I will definitely be doing some type of travel-oriented business.
Which is kind of right around the corner in some ways.
A few years.
Yes.
I cannot wait. I do not like living in the boring suburbs of Seattle, but what can I do? Anyway, even though we're not doing it full-time, I'm so happy that more and more families are world schooling. I'm really proud of the families that took my course and are launching out there. Envious at watching, their videos and Instagrams and Facebook posts. And I'm so proud of them and how happy they are, and they're thriving. Their kids are doing well. I mean, obviously there's bumps in the road. It's not a perfect lifestyle. There's always some pros and cons. So I'm just really wanting to encourage more people to try world schooling, even if it's for a long summer or school breaks or a year or 10 years. Your kids and you will be better off if you do it this way, because you will learn to become a global citizen, which is more important than ever. You might learn a language or 2. You're going to open up your mind and your perspective about what the real world is really like, not just what the media tells you. You will make amazing friends from all over the world. And, I just think that when you're on your deathbed looking back on your life, what do you want it to mean? And having these amazing memories with your kids that go beyond just the 18 summers you have with them before they fly off, is really precious. So see if you can make an investment and do this. And again, it can be cheaper to world school, depending on where you live, and travel abroad than living in your home country. And so if you figure out how to fund it, save up, talk to Susie about budgeting. And there's other ways to just work part-time and freelance and teach English online and whatever here and there, just to make an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month to help fund the travel. And there's cheaper ways to do it with pet sitting and house swaps and so many different ways. Just really consider it because this will be an amazing gift to give to your family. And I really want to encourage more families to give it a try.
I love it. That is so great. A great note to end on. We'll make sure to link all those resources in the show notes so people who are learning to world school can connect with you with your course. And I really appreciate our conversation. I've learned so much today. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please do me a huge favor and tell a friend or traveling family about the show. And hey, don't miss out on bonus content, behind the scenes, and more on Instagram, Facebook, or Substack. Thanks for tuning in. Go send this episode to a friend. See you next time.